Hey, please let me know if you can see me and hear the audio. Okay, we have it on finally. So I just went through the training on this. I'll do it again. Looking at emergency calls. The screen up well with the, it looks like it's working there. Greetings, everyone. Try again with this. I will learn eventually. In emergency calls, 911, 999, etc., we consider this the first interview that takes place with law enforcement. This is the first time the subject is speaking. When we do training, we start from the simple, we go to the complex. And in a type situation like this, there's certain expectations that we hold that are very simple. And it's always context dependent, but we look at what should be coming through in spite of the nervousness, the anxiety, the tension, the hormonal consequence of what is coming out in the context from the person's own language. It becomes important for us to understand what it is that we're looking at, what it is that we're considering in the context. Now, I like doing 911 calls. They're easy to do, generally speaking, and they're easy to teach. There's a lot more to them than what I'm able to do on a short video, but they're often very helpful. So we have an expectation the caller is going to prioritize the victim. And we're looking at a case here where a fiance came home and found his fiance on the floor with blood everywhere. So this is a dire emergency. We have an expectation that he's going to be asking for help for the victim. Now, there are exceptions to that every so often comes up, and you'll see on the blog, I think there was one from a nurse where a nurse asked for help for herself, not the victim. So we want to flag that immediately as a possibility of trouble. What the nurse was doing was administering first aid. She needed help to help the victim. So we have this concern that she's asking for help for herself, but then we see contextually that this was an appropriate sensitivity for her. So we judge whether something is appropriate or inappropriate. We don't expect someone to be overly polite either. This is an emergency. Those that are overly polite sometimes are indicated for guilty knowledge of what happened. So when someone's hi, hello, and they're being very nice to police, there's a psychological need to get along well with them. In an emergency setting, and something that we even liken to excited utterance. Why would you need to persuade police that you're a good guy, that you're helpful? We also judge about the flow of information. The subject is either working for that, facilitating it, bringing up certain relevant must-hear points, or not. Sometimes we'll get someone that's very quiet and hardly gives any information. Other times we'll get someone that will give information that goes completely off topic to bring the topic away from the victim. And that can be a signal of guilt. We look for someone expressing sorrow. It not conclusively a point of guilt, but we look at it and we add it to the other points. We listen for someone who prioritizes self over the victim. 911, what's your emergency? I was sleeping and I just woke up and my baby's missing. I was sleeping, I just woke up. 2 points are off the board, not my baby's missing. I was sleeping and I just woke up. Those both having to do with time and express concern about where the person is going with that. So we're going to listen for these things. We have an expectation that he's going to demand help for the victim or for himself if he's doing CPR or first aid, then he may need help. That's what we're looking for. So we go from the simple to the complex, and we listen to our expectations. Now, this is contaminating information. I did not know about this case, but I'd like to give it to you just the same. The case was originally thought to be a homicide, and later it was changed to suicide. And I believe for almost a decade, that's where it has remained as a case that was suicide. I don't know why it was changed. It may have something to do with the door lock from the inside. And another contaminating point here is that the victim had, I believe, 20 stab wounds. 20 stab wounds. That's not an expectation of suicide for most anyone, but especially for females. That might be something we would see in a male that is full of rage, perhaps on like methamphetamine or another type of drug, and full of self-loathing, rage. We've talked a little bit about Robin Williams' suicide and the sheer strength it took to end his life that he used. We generally don't find that with females, and I've never heard of such a thing here. So that influences me. So I want to listen to his words, and I want him to guide me, because strange things happen in life, and human nature continually surprises us. So let's listen with the presupposition that he didn't do it, that he's seeking help for her, and that she is the priority. That would be the norm, no matter how anxious, upset, panicky, anything else. That would be the norm. So he begins by saying, 911, what's your emergency? Help. And the help is not asked for the victim, but at this point, neither it is for himself either. So I'll leave that there. So right after help, he enters. And he's self-censored. He stopped himself. I don't know what he's got. Then he says, I need. And then he repeats it. I need. I know and I believe that he has a need. I'm hoping the need is, how do I stop the bleeding? Help, not me, not her. I, 3 eyes, 4 eyes, 5 eyes. I just. Now, the word just is a comparative dependent word having to do with immediacy, time. So we're thinking with the call, time. I'm concerned about time. I just walked into my apartment. So before I even get to what's going on, because you don't know what's going on, help, I need, was a short word here. I just walked into my apartment. That walked is rather casual, no? There's no emergency there. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere. So that's his final point. Help. I, casual, time, and my fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere. Whose blood? He doesn't tie to her. She's not bleeding. There's blood everywhere. It's a slight element of passivity that we can be concerned of subtle depersonalization of the victim. So we ask for help, but not for anyone in particular. So we always ask, does the caller ask for help? He did not ask for help for the victim. He did not ask for help for himself to save the victim. He has a need. I know he has a need. So we look at the priority. The priority is found in the order of words. My daughter is missing. My fiance is bleeding. help, I've got, I need, whatever. The need is powerful because he repeated it. I just, timing. So when someone says, I just came upon an accident, just like that, it means time-wise. So as the subject introduces time, we want to confirm that. We want to make sure that he doesn't have any problem with time. There's been no delay. We don't think in an emergency situation that you find someone bleeding out, you stop and had a cigarette, and then decided to call 911. So it can be unnecessary. And when it is unnecessary, we're concerned about it. A little off topic here, but I don't want to go too far here, but why did he take ownership of the apartment? Why wasn't it ours? Especially that she is allegedly alive, vulnerable, and need of help. I'm very concerned about this. I'm very concerned, so much concerned that I am thinking taking ownership of the apartment while she's lying there with blood everywhere. Was there domestic violence prior to this? Was there domestic violence in their history? Things I want to explore. I don't know, but I want to explore from those words. What's the address? What's the address? House or apartment? It's an apartment. And then we have him saying, please, hurry, please. And so we flagged this in an emergency call for the factor of ingratiation. Ingratiation is a need to be seen as a good guy, as the same side of the police, of the investigators. And it's not something we expect to hear in this setting. So the operator has to ask, where is she bleeding from? And this is something that should have been offered immediately. And he says he doesn't know. So if you came home and you found your fiance on the floor and there's blood everywhere, would you know where that blood is coming from? Would you have tried to save her? Would you have tried to do anything? He can't tell. Why can't he tell? Why hasn't he looked? Why hasn't he tried to save her? To stop the blood that is everywhere. 911 tells him to calm down. He then says, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry is another thing we find that creeps up in the language of those that have guilt. Now, I'm not saying this is guilt due to murder. Something's wrong. His priority is himself. And I don't like to see it. And I don't like to see it repeated. One of the famous cases of that is the one with Casey Anthony, where she got on the phone with police, said, I'm sorry, as if she's being polite. Her daughter had been missing supposedly for 30 days at that point. So we just highlight it, make a note of it. We're concerned about it. I don't know. So now we have the pronoun I, we have him halting on it, which generally speaking is an increase now in tension or anxiety for him. What does he say? I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. Right now has to do with the element of time. Time. I was already concerned about time with the word just. Repeated. Just walked in, just walked in. I know from these points that he's making about time that more time has passed than he's let on. He wants it to be immediate. Therefore, something is amiss with that. I'm looking at her right now. Right now is comparison to something else. When else were you looking at her? We would not have thought that had he not said something like this. I don't know, I can't see anything. She doesn't, there's nothing broken. Can't see anything, but he knows there's nothing broken. I'm not sure exactly what that means. She's bleeding, Ellie. So the question is, where is she bleeding from? And the answer is, I don't know. And it's producing more anxiety and increase for him. So note that right now, it's only right now that he's looking at her. He wants police to know that he may not have been looking at her previously. So this is impossible yet within his words. It was not her blood, it was blood everywhere. Now he's there looking at her. Now he can assign the blood to her. This is a strong indication that he was looking at her prior to this call and knows more than what he's revealing. He's indicating time gap that we're concerned about. And apparently the operator was too. You don't know where she's bleeding from? He calls her name. And we have in 911 calls what we label as intended and unintended recipients. An intended recipient is the person you're talking to directly, an operator. The unintended is when you maybe call out to the victim, but you want it recorded that way. You want it to appear to be helpful. Similar to someone that maybe, going back to Casey Anthony case, where she was in the jailhouse and didn't realize when she and her mother were speaking that it was being recorded and broadcast on the Nancy Grace show. And then the next day she changed her demeanor quite a bit. She was speaking to the camera. We call that the unintended recipients, and it is often more important than the intended recipient. So the operator says, you can't see where the blood's coming from. You know, you're looking at her right now and she's yours. So naturally you're going to be down to try to help her. I think her head, I think she hit her head. I think, but, so he offers that she hit her head and then he offers a self-rebuttal and they're talking at the same time. And the operator offers might have fallen everywhere. It's everywhere. Do you think she might have fallen? Yeah. Now, at this point, if you came home and walked into your apartment and found your fiance on the floor with blood everywhere, would you be afraid that someone else was there? Would you be able to draw such a conclusion that she was alone, that no one did this to her? This blood everywhere thing. Say, well, he knew that it was locked. We'll get to that. She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple. So I wonder if she's still alive here. Okay, hold on for rescue. Stay on the phone. So the Philadelphia Fire Department comes on. We have someone that is going to tell him how to administer first aid. He hasn't asked for it yet. And this is very troubling here. This is fresh to the EMT or whoever it is that's working on this speaker here. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong is my fiance is bleeding. How do I stop the blood? And that's not what he said. Remember timing? I went downstairs to go work out. So when did her death start? Earlier than he's describing. What's wrong is that she's bleeding. For him, in his perception of reality, he wants them to know, I wasn't here. I went downstairs and I'm afraid you're going to ask me why I went downstairs, so I better tell you. What he's doing is he's preempting the question, well, why did you go downstairs? So what's wrong? She's bleeding. No, I just, time-wise, went downstairs, I'll tell you the reason why, to go work out. I came back up, the next point, the door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half an hour, so do you recall being concerned about the passing of time in his words prior to this? Was that something that you were able to spot with his timing and introducing of time? So now he's telling you there was a delay. So she wasn't answering. So after a half hour, I decided to break it down. And I see her now, that's time, just on the floor, bloody. She's not responding. So by emphasizing on time, our natural question is, when did you see her before? Why is he elongating time? What's he doing here? Okay, she's breathing. I can't. Look at her chest. I need you to calm down. I need you to look at her chest. It's really, I really don't think she is. Has he asked for help for her yet? He has not. Has he asked for help for himself to help her? He has not. Has he emphasized himself in priority here and the first thing that came out of his mouth above when the operator answered? Yes. She's on her back. Do I bring her? I don't see her moving. Okay, do you know how to do CPR? I don't. Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat. And he goes off, oh God, so we note the deity. We note what deity he's not asked for help for her, God save her. And the firefighter says, where is she? Where is he going? Hello? Yeah, hi, okay. So he's ingratiating. He wants to be seen as helpful. Are you willing? This is something that should not have had to be asked. Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there? I guess I have to, right? So is that someone that's interested in saving his fiance? Not really a time to be reluctant. So here we have him unwilling to help her. That coincides with his priority, which is himself. Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you've got to. Okay, I'm trying not to. Trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Rip it off. Oh my God, she stabbed herself. How does he know that? Even with the door latched, how did he know someone can break in a window somewhere? He went right to this. Where? She fell on a knife. Oh no, her knife's sticking out. So that stabbing herself is now falling on a knife. And this is strange. And I did this with other analysts and some students. And why is it her knife? And he didn't miss this. Her what? There's a knife. That would be more normal. Okay, she stabbed herself? I guess so. So did she hit her head, stab herself, fall on a knife? I don't know. Or she fell on it. I don't know. Okay, well don't touch it. Okay, so I just let her now. Somebody, what do I do? Oh, you can't, if the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR this time. Oh no, oh my goodness, okay. I don't like the agreement. Okay, someone's on the way. Is the knife still inside? And right to be concerned, very concerned there. Is there what? The knife is still inside of her? Yes, I didn't take it out. Is her chest, or what area does it? It's her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart. So that can kind of tell us about depth and perhaps psychologically some other issues going on there, especially in the relationship. It'd be a tremendous depth and strength to put it in that way. How old is she? 27. I don't like this, the politeness here. Okay, thank you. And now, again, ingratiation. Hey, make sure you see me as the good guy. Is said by someone that needs to be seen as a good guy. She's Ellie. She's not, it's not her arm, her hands are still warm, which would indicate life. I don't know what that means. Why would you even offer that? But there's blood everywhere. So I'm very concerned about the amount of time that's passed in his account, because it's more than 30 minutes. It looks pretty deep. Oh, okay. It looks 3. All right. I mean, it's a long knife. Don't touch anything, sir. Yeah, don't touch anything, okay? I'm not touching anything. They're concerned here. I can't believe this. And this is the unintended recipient type of language. Make sure you're being recorded with that. So what? It was just you there with her? Yeah, we're the only ones here. And she ran in the door, you said, and latched it shut? No. I went downstairs, and here's why I went downstairs. Because I don't want you to ask me why I went downstairs. To work out. And when I came back up, the door was latched. So this is the anxiety that he's tripping on the pronoun I as a non-stutterer. And this is the question that produced that additional anxiety over a very anxious call anyway, but an increase. Like it wasn't, it wasn't like it was, it was like she locked from the inside, and I'm yelling. So I was, the words, like a habit of speech, show an awareness of the audience. So if you're a public speaker, for example, and you're talking to a crowd and you find yourself saying, generally speaking, you got a little nervous, you're recognizing their presence, maybe someone made a face at you or something, but you're aware of their presence. So he's aware of their presence. We look at what kind of questions produce it, what type topic here. Then he moves into the present tense, I'm yelling. And by now you should be recognizing that there may be what we call scripted language here. Someone that's rehearsed what they're going to say. So I'm yelling here, and I guess, was the house broken into? No. So there's no sign of a break-in? No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here, because I had to break the latch, but to get in. So after 30 minutes of no response and time going on, he's got a break to get in. And what did he do after he broke in? He ran over to her and found her bleeding. No, he walked in. That's a portrayal of someone that's casual. So let me portray this so you will perceive it that way, because I don't want you to perceive it any other way. Things you shouldn't even be caring about. And then we have the thank you. I'm also very concerned about what he may have been thinking here when he said that he was looking at her right now. Because that tells us that he was looking at her before. And we need to know more about that. So the conclusion of the matter here is that I do not see from this call how he was ruled out of being a suspect. He is withholding information about what happened. He is not being forthcoming with it. There's more to this than he has said. His priority in this call was not the victim. It was himself. He didn't ask for help for the victim. He didn't ask for help for himself. So there are a lot of red flags in this particular 911 call, and I'm very concerned about what took place here. So if you have any questions, I just have a few minutes here. I can take a few questions regarding this. Wouldn't it be difficult to penetrate the chest with a kitchen knife if you were stabbing yourself? Very much so. So something is very wrong with this particular call. There is some hope, I think, raised by the family that it may be reclassified. I know they had some experts go in and take a look at this, and I think the experts probably are thinking to themselves, how was this caller cleared? Are you willing, does the operator have doubts? And a great point, Dave, that this would not be asked if the operator didn't have the doubts. Um, this question here, I don't have an answer to. How is it ruled a suicide? My only guess is that actually it wasn't the. I don't think it came from police. It was the medical examiner. Perhaps it was based upon the locked door. But that doesn't preclude other means. Good question here about being super nervous. Yeah, so we go from the baseline of someone being super nervous, and then if we see any changes in that, we look at what produces it. For this guy, not only was it priority himself, but the element of time made him more nervous. That he was looking at her. I don't want to go too far into speculation, but that's just not good. So let's say that it was suicide. He's not telling us what happened beforehand. He's withholding information there. I have my doubts, of course, as probably anyone does with suicide here, but someone can, with depraved indifference, churn the emotions in such a way as to inspire or facilitate suicide. For me, that would be the minimum. I'm more concerned about actual homicide. So this is a good observation. And if my understanding is correct, there were stab wounds on the back of the neck. I really think someone's going to do that to themselves that way. So I think Cyril Wecht and others have weighed in on that. You can look online and get more information about that. I'll look at this, and Paul's putting this from a perspective of, like Dave, an expert. Is it possible that knife being assigned to her could have been because she pulled it to defend herself? What a great question. Okay, so the I is very important. This is another good question about being confused with that. I means commitment. What we look at is if you're referring to the stuttering of an I by a non-stutterer. We use the pronoun I millions and millions of times. We're really good at it. When someone begins to halt or stutter on the pronoun I, there's a great increase in stress, nervousness, anxiety, depending on how far it goes. So we look at what produces that. Also, in context, again, the context is going to be her needs, not his. Unless his need is to how he can handle it, and he's asking for help. How do I do this? How do I do that? Then I would say that those eyes are appropriate, not the stuttering, but the appropriate eyes there. In this case, the eyes are about himself. His priority is himself in this call. And I think initially the police investigation got it right. Can someone with a criminal record and history of violence be more likely to speak like Sam in a call as word that he may be framed? Yeah. If someone has a really lengthy history, let's say a domestic violence history, and now there's a victim there, they're going to show a higher level of defensive posture. So that's great. This is where what we do is we go from our principles into all the various factors that can go into that. And as analysts study more and more and they become used to the language of emergency calls, they can see the patterns develop. So great question. What would a truly innocent person, a de facto innocent person, say when they just walked in? If someone said, I just walked in and my fiance is bleeding, you went right to it, even though they just walked in, because that could be describing the startled response. Keep repeating it and keep playing with time like that, and you make us think, hey, did more time pass? So just on that one initial use in the very beginning, if it didn't have I need help, I need, I wouldn't be so concerned. So I think that's a great question, also a fair question. I just came upon a car accident. I'm startled by what I've seen, and trying to help, and then immediately going to what is needed. He didn't do that, though. So, good question. Why stab yourself in the back of the neck? I don't know. Maybe Paul or someone else can weigh in, Dave can weigh in on that, but perhaps defensive wounds, perhaps even staging. If someone is narcissistic but not guilty of the crime they are calling 911 for, do they still center themselves in a crisis situation? I find generally no, but again, an intelligent question that I want to explore further. Generally speaking, emergency calls are not polite. They're not self-centered. It's usually too much of a shock and the person's in too much need that they go right to those needs. And when we find a lot of these red flags add up, we find guilty callers, people that with either guilty knowledge or they did it, making those calls. There wasn't any domestic violence reported, at least that I know of. I don't know the case well, but let's assume that's true. I wonder if she ever spoke about him being controlling. My apartment in that scenario. So that would be important for the collateral interviews. Of course, you're going to explore her mental health, but you want to talk to friends and others that may have observed things. Wouldn't the parents, her parents? Okay, so this is, I'm hoping someone was going to catch this, and Juliana did. Is it possible that his language suggests that perhaps he looked at her while she was still alive and waited for time to pass before making the call? Yes. That's my repeated concern about his emphasis on time. So tremendous observation, Juliana. Yeah, and psychologically, Z, that could be the same thing where he couldn't look at her that way after what happened. So, I don't know if it's true, but that's my concern. And I apologize for missing any of the ones here. I'm just scrolling up and down looking for them. And Paul, I wonder if you could build more on even the use of that pronoun "my" with the knife. Tremendous. So keep an eye on the news. You might see more of this coming up. It was just recently in the news in December, around Christmas time or so, that 10 years have gone by with this, and I'm hoping to see resolution. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you back in another case.